In the heart of West Africa lies a nation of diverse people, rich culture, complex history, and boundless resilience. We proudly present the Unsung Heroes Project, a captivating journey through the vibrant tapestry of identities and experiences in Nigeria. This project showcases the stories of everyday people whose voices and experiences have the power to inspire and drive positive change in our society.
Hello, this is my story. Um, I was given birth to by my parents who had looked for children for over 16 years, and they finally had me. Now, prior to giving birth to me, my mom and my dad got married at a very early age. My mom was 17 and my dad was 18. Now, my mom had like made a covenant with herself that she wasn't going to give herself to any man except the man that is actually going to get married to her. So she met my dad and they got talking, and then my dad decides to, he wants to get married to her. So he went to her dad and said, I want to get married to your daughter. And then her dad said, okay. So he came to my mom and said, okay, your dad said, okay, let's get married. And let's get married. It's already settled. So they finally slept together. And then my mom's dad decides to go tell his family about the whole my dad coming to ask for her hand in marriage and all of that. And then her uncle says to my grandpa that that family is not an amazing family, especially the mother. So I will not want our daughter going into that family. And then her dad came back and told her and said, the marriage will not hold. Now, my mom had already gone against her covenant according to her. And then there was no other way out. So they tried and it wasn't working with her dad. So both of them decided to run away. So they eloped, according to English language, they eloped. So they went to Enugu State and decided to start life together. According to my mom, they slept in a shop, they struggled together. Imagine two young people struggling together, and finally, God being good to them, they started making headways, they started getting money, they became so wealthy. My dad was working in an office, and my mom also got a job with a bank and was working in a bank, and life was good. And from there, my dad was also doing some other businesses. Now they were looking for a child and they couldn't get a child. Fast forward, they looked for a child, did all manner of things, looked to get a child, and they couldn't get a child. And because they wanted to get a child and go back to her dad so that the dad can approve they are married because there is a child involved, but they couldn't. So they even had to, after so many years, they went back to the dad. By now, they had already made so much money. They went back to the dad, and finally the dad agreed and they wedded. Still, yes, there wasn't a child. So in the process of looking for a child, my dad had to, according to my mom, he comes back home from work with some of his colleagues. She cooks, she does everything for them, makes the house comfortable and all of that. And only for her to, because she had to go into business too. She had a boutique and she was running her boutique. So only for her to travel out, and she got a call from Nigeria that her husband was actually getting married to someone else, a traditional wedding, and they also did a court wedding. While she didn't do a court wedding, so she was devastated because all her life she's just my dad. She left her family, left everybody just to be with my dad, and of all, it's even the people he comes back home with, the lady he usually comes home and she feeds and takes care of. So it was a big shock to her. And that was how her story started. Her life became miserable, she became unhappy, and finally, 16 years after her marrying my dad, she had a child, and that was me. So I grew up. Um, Now I grew up. There are two homes, my own home and my mom's home. So there are two wives now. So I grew up with that. Now the lady came in with a child. She had a child. That's how she was able to get married to my dad. She came in with a child for my dad, and so they had to get married to the woman. So I grew up with my mom basically, because my dad was hardly ever around. He was, I think, because of his job, he was posted to another state. But even when he comes back home, we hardly see him because there are two homes. So he goes, spend time the other place, comes to us, spend time with us. But even when he comes to stay with us, he doesn't stay so much, just spend some few hours. He hardly sleeps in our own home. So we grew up alone. We grew up with our mom, and so growing up for me was a whole lot because I grew up um, I grew up in a home where, yes, we had a dad, but literally it looked like we didn't have a father because he was never available. And my mom had to struggle. Sometimes she struggled. She's always going out. She's always going out to fend, going out to look for how we eat. Meanwhile, our dad was on the other party. They were very comfortable. They had everything they needed. So we grew up in the house. Sometimes, like I'll tell my children, I said I didn't know what it means to drink bread and tea. Our tea was Lipton in we used to put this big custard rubber. We do Lipton, lots of Lipton, and plenty sugar, with bread. That was tea for us. That was what we knew as tea. We our house was just not something good, and most times we were hungry. I remember one day, I and my siblings, we had to, we went, there's a woman that sells like a mama puts downstairs of our house because we live in an environment like a it's not we are staying upstairs, but it's a compound that is like a compound where you have houses, face me, I face you house. So we went downstairs to sit beside because we go there to sit. She sells mama put every evening. So we go there to sit and just sit around and see if maybe she could help us with food and all of that. And sometimes I do just wash plates for her so that she can be able to give us food, and then we'll eat and go home. There's so many stories, so many things, even when we were being driven for school fees, even when my sister was sick, my mom literally had to stay with her for many months, and life was not easy. So I literally lived on the streets. Every day you were out, nobody was there to check you up, to know what's going on. Nobody was there to look at where are you, what's happening, where did you go to. You could literally go out, come back from school, you walk around the whole area. There was no part of that state I didn't know because we walked around. We had friends everywhere, just walking around, and there were even times the woman's son, the woman that sells the mama, there was a time he wanted to make like, how do I put it? He wanted to he asked me out, not like asked me out. How do you call somebody into a room? He asked me to come into a room. I came into a room, and then I was still very small, was trying to penetrate me and all of that. I'm like, I can't, this is painful. I couldn't do it, and I ran out. And that's the kind of life I grew up having and living. And then years later, my dad says we should go stay together as a family. He wants, because he couldn't afford to take care of two homes anymore. He wants us, and besides, the company where he was working was giving them an apartment. somewhere in town. So we had to all merge together. My mom was reluctant. She didn't want to go. But I looked at her and I said, Mommy, it's to be nice for us to live together as a family. We've not had our daddy together with us for so many years. And so we moved. My mom didn't move initially. We all moved. We, the children, we moved and we started living together. Now, living with my dad. So I was already, I was almost I was almost SS1 or SS2 when we lived together. So living with my dad, because I had not lived with him for years, I didn't get to know his kind of person. I didn't get to know who he really was, and we started living together with the other family. Still, while we were living together, his things were in the other room, so he was more obvious that they were his people and we were the ones that are not his people. But it's fine. That's life. So um there's so many incidences. The ones I can remember are ones whereby sometimes he has to pick us to school when we're going to school. Um, Maybe he has issues with my mom. They were always fighting, him and my mom, when we were living together with the other woman. Always fighting, always quarreling, always, every time. The whole neighborhood knew him and my mom for quarreling. There was a day were outside because it's an estate, it's a very big estate, and we were outside and they were quarreling. We were in the car. I don't know where we wanted to go to. They were both quarreling in the car and they came outside and started, exchanging words with each other. And we, the children, were in the car, me and my brother, my brother and my sisters, because my mom finally had three girls and a boy, even though she adopted one before I came. So they were in the car and they were arguing, and finally both of them, my mom came downstairs and said, these children, you people should follow me. And my sister now said, oh, everybody, let's choose who who we're going to follow. Do you want to follow daddy or you want to follow mommy? And we started the who will you follow, who will you not follow. Everybody, all of us, the ladies, we all followed my mom straight up. And my brother sat in the car. And my sister said, Michael, come here, come here. Follow mommy, follow mommy, follow mommy. He sat down there and started crying. He didn't want to go with mommy, he didn't want to go with daddy. He just broke down and started crying. So that's just one of the incidents. There was a day my dad was supposed to go to school. And because he had issues with my mom that morning, and he carried my stepbrothers and they entered the car and they were going, and he was supposed to pick us too, but he just left us and started going. And I stood by the window and I saw him driving up, and I said, Mommy, see, Daddy's driving up. Daddy's driving up. And she said, leave him, let him go, leave him, let him go, leave him, let him go. And he drove off. And and I got to school that day, I was flogged, and I said, Daddy, I will never forgive you. I will never. For all of these things you've done to me, I will never forgive you. And so while living together with my dad in that house, living with him, living with um, my stepmom, living with my stepmom, she had girls. She has a lot of girls she brings into the house to stay with her, take care of her children and herself. And my mom had to bring my cousin. And one day while I was writing my my senior work, because I wake up earlier to read, I was about waking up to read, and I heard my mom was not around. Like I said, my mom was always busy from one point to another. She needed to take care of us. And I guess she went for a night vigil or something. And then that morning, like it was almost like, let's say 4 a.m., 5 a.m. I heard the bed, because we had this iron bed, and I heard the bed squeaking, like, and I'm like, I wanted to stand up, and I heard voices, and the voice was like, I know my children, I know my children. I can't forget this statement. I know my children. I know when they are sleeping. I know when they are waking. I know when they are awake. I know when they are doing things. And they are all sleeping. Don't worry. And they continued. And in the morning, I woke up. When it was morning, I stood up. I was so angry that my dad was sleeping with my cousin. And I couldn't tell my mom. I couldn't tell anyone because I knew my mom. My mom, once she hears anything like that, she would turn the whole house upside down. And we had these uncles. They usually come around. My mom got to know a relative and a family friend. So he had some brothers. They come around the house. They're always around. They come. They take us out. They buy us things. And all of that. And this particular day, one of them comes to the house and said he wants to take me only out. He wants to take just me. And we were young. I was just 14 and everybody was excited. I was so excited. I'm going to eat suya. We love suya and gari. I was going to eat suya and all of that. And he takes me out. And when you go to, in the northern parts, when you go to, there are some places they have where they're like hotels, but you won't know they are hotels. They are places, very quiet places. And we got to that place. When we got to that place, they had a bar. I sat down in the bar and he bought a drink for me. I sat down, I was taking the drink, and then he told me he was coming. He went inside. I sat down there, and some few minutes later, a lady walks up to me and says, the person that brought me is calling me somewhere. So I stood up and I went, and it was a room. And when I immediately entered the room, he shut the door and he took the key, and he said he has been wanting to have me all this time, and every time he looks at me that he doesn't want any other person. He wants to be the first, and he said a lot of that. I told him, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready, and I don't want to disappoint my mother. I don't want to break my mother's heart. And I'm not ready for this and all of that. And we kept at it. And he told me, okay, I don't mind. We're going to stay here till tomorrow because your dad has a rule at home. Once it's 6 o'clock, nobody stays. Nobody goes outside. I started crying because I know how my dad reacts when you don't come back early. So we had to struggle, and then finally I gave in, and then he raped me. I cried. I was bitter. I was so sober. I went home because I used to be at home. I used to be a very playful, joyful, everywhere, dancing, jumping. Sometimes I see my son do that. He's always playing, and I just remember myself. And and I came back home. When I came back home, I sat outside for a while because it was almost after 6. I didn't want my dad see me coming in and all of that. I sat outside. While I was sitting outside, my cousin came and she said to me, by then I didn't even know she was sleeping with my dad. And she said to me, what are you? Why are you crying? And I explained things. I said, is that why it's nothing now. It's one of those things. Why you, my dear, just stand up, stand up, leave that thing and move on with your life and all of that. And I came home. I think that evening, the so-called uncle came, brought some drugs and, gave me some drugs to take. And that's how my life took a different turn. I became very sober. I couldn't tell my mom because I didn't know how to say it to her. And she was not always there though, so I couldn't tell her. So the only person I knew was my cousin. So I had to go so after school, I did my SSC, left school. I had to go to Lagos because my mom said she wanted me to go to Lagos and spend some time with her brother. So I left for Lagos, and my My mom registered I am my cousin for GCE. That's my same cousin. Sometimes even in the house, you see, it was later on I got to know what was going on. The ladies in the house were actually looking for my dad. My dad was a fine man. He was a very handsome man. So both the ladies from my stepmom and my cousin, sometimes you'd be wondering what's the boundary. Sometimes you see them quarreling and all of that. And I didn't know what was going on until after the day I caught my cousin with my dad. So I left for Lagos, and while in Lagos, I left for Lagos. While in Lagos, I was discussing with my auntie because my auntie was really close to me, and I was discussing with her. So one day I had to tell her, I said, Auntie, there's something bothering me, and I think I need to tell somebody. I need to make somebody know. And she said, what is it? I should say that. I said, but I don't want you to let my mom know. She's going to be hurt. She's going to take out. She's already going through a lot. And so I had to open up to her. I said, this is what's going on. This is what happened to me. And this is what's going on in my house. My auntie said, no, 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 no. We can't keep such kind of thing away from my mom. She needs to know that, I don't know that this thing bring curses and all of that. And no, 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 she has to, So she called my mom, and my mom, I wasn't there, I was in Lagos, but from the story I heard, the whole estate caught fire. My mom was upset, my mom was angry. My dad, now in defense, said he knew I had I was raped by the guy. It was the first person that broke it to my mom, because I told my aunt not to tell my mom that he knew about it, that he arrested the guy. He said all manner of things he did to get. And I'm like, that's a lie. My dad never even mentioned. I'm even surprised my dad got to know. So I realized it was my cousin that actually told him. So that was how the whole issue went. And I got to know that my mom packed all my siblings, took them away from the house, sent everybody to boarding school. She returned my cousin back to her parents, and she left the house and she went to somewhere else to stay, not in the same state. She also left and went down to the east to stay. So now I had to come back for GCE, I had to come back for GCE. And when I came back for GCE, to write my GCE, my cousin too had to come back for GCE, and we had to come back to the house. So we came back home. When we came back home, I came back to write GCE. My mom had already left. My siblings had left. Everybody, they've packed out everybody, and it was just our room that was there. So while writing the GCE, when I came for the GCE, my dad refused taking care of me, refused giving me transportation, refused having anything to do with me. I only come greet him, doesn't even ask me, have you eaten? So when I came for GCE, I had to fend for myself. I had to take care of myself, because GCE, then they used to write GCE for weeks. You had to come for weeks. GCE is like external exams. And my cousin too was around. My cousin, he would ask my cousin, have you eaten? He would, making it so obvious to me. And my cousin too was hot with me that I had to expose the whole thing. And so in the course of writing GCE, there was a day I was so hungry. My God, I was so hungry. I had to now go back to that same uncle that raped me. I went back to him and I told him, I said, I'm hungry. I need to eat. I don't have transport to go to my place of exam tomorrow. And he was so happy, excited I came back. And when I came, he said, okay, this time around, we have to do blood covenant. We have to cut a covenant. And I said, no, I'm not ready to cut any covenant. I don't want to cut a covenant. I'm not ready. I don't want to do that. And he got angry, he got upset, and all of that. And finally, he assisted me just to have money for some time and all of that. So after the GC, I got admission. I went into school from Lagos. I went into school. I got admission into the university. Now in the university, I literally took care of myself because my dad wasn't there. My mom had other siblings. My siblings were enough for her. She was hustling, trying to make 1 or 2 ends meet because they were all in school. So most times I I had to run from one state to another just to do some chores, some jobs for people, come back to school so I can survive per week. And then I got to meet, that's where I went to a church, Dominion City, and I met um, wonderful people. I met a man who told me what a father is and how he's going to be a father to me. He really proved to me that fathers are different, and he took me in, not like into his house, but he took me in like his own daughter. I remember one of my birthdays, he was the first person to give me a birthday gift. He came in and he brought some shares, duty shares, and he gave it to me and said, "Happy birthday. I bought the shares for you." I was so excited. I was like, and he started talking to me about forgiving my dad and how everything my dad did was not intentional. I should learn to let my dad go if I want to make progress in life, if I want to really succeed, that my father is still my father. That was the beginning of the healing process for me. So I started trying to let go, but it wasn't easy. There was a lot of things I could remember one day my dad said to me that I'm the black sheep of the family. Why? Because what did I do? For no reason. I couldn't just place my hands on what did I really do? What did I do that you could just turn your back on me? When I was in school, there was a day he was going to my brother's school because my brother was just like a state ahead of my own place. So he has to pass through the state where I went through school to where my brother is schooling. And he has to even pass through my house. Like my house is on the road, so he has to pass through my house. And for one day, my dad didn't step into the house too. I even told him, I'm living here. He didn't even step in. He didn't even come in. There was a day I heard he passed and went to my brother's school, and I was at my stepbrother's school. I was so upset. I felt rejected. I felt rejected. That's the word. There was a day while I was in university, I went home. He was in the house, and I told him, because they had to relocate from the north down to the east because of the riots and all of that. So I went to him and I told him, I said, "Daddy, I want you to give me 1,000 naira so that to be in the history of my life that while I was in university, you gave me 1,000 naira at least." He told me he didn't have money. I sat down there and I said, "Daddy, I'm leaving. Please give me something so that I will know that in my life you gave me something." He said he didn't have. And I left for school. I think a few days or a week later, I heard my stepbrother came and, asked him for money. He gave him, and my stepbrother said that money wasn't enough. I wasn't going to do anything for him. My stepbrother locked himself in the room for 3 days. My dad had to sell his shares and give him the money, So that's how I grew up. So from getting to meet the man, the church, I would help people in church, walk, clean, help bankers, then do some house chores. That's how I get money to run myself for the week. By weekend, I'm back again to town just to survive. That's how I went through school for the 4 years I went through school. Sometimes I'll stand in the bus, the place we stand to get bus. I'll stand there and I'll be looking for who is going to school so that I can join in and you can help me pay my fees. It was bad. It was bad. We literally begged our way through everything. Even before we even went to live with my dad, we were begging. We begged. We begged to wear everything. We begged to eat. We begged to even Christmas clothes. We had to beg Christmas clothes. So even in university, I had lived all that life begging and all of that. And I just want to thank God for that same man. Even though he's late, I really appreciate the work he did in my life. He did a lot just to show me what a father can do for a child. And I finished school. I went back to the north for youth service and met wonderful people, met amazing people. Um, Started working, started had a different life, got married. Now I have my own children, and I've been able to share my story with a lot of people, a lot of young girls. I've so helped a lot of people with my story, especially young girls. A few days ago, my sister sent, because my sister has a group a group of women where she's helping people raise intentional children. Because my sister suffered a lot from my dad. It was so bad that when my sister was in school, so it's not just me. When my sister was in school, she had to. There was a time they gave money for her fees. My uncle gave my dad money for their fees. My dad took my sister's money and gave my brother to go. Collected my sister's money. My sister cried and cried. She was about to write exam. My dad refused, cried and cried. And as my sister was going to school that day, she stood by the junction because my mom finally was able to raise money. And then she stood by the junction and said, "Daddy, this rejected stone you're rejecting will become the chief cornerstone." And she cried and left. And she got to school. She never came back home. If you ask her, she will say she doesn't have a father. In school, what's your dad? My dad is dead. My dad is dead, So I so my sister wrote, why I said the story was 2 days ago, a few weeks ago, my sister wrote on her platform and said, because someone was asking, how did you grow up? What were the experiences that changed your life? And she said, who are the people that changed your life? And she said one of the persons that changed her life was her sister. At the time she had, because of the issues she had with her dad, rough issues with her dad, I made a statement to her and I asked her, who are you? Who are you? I told her, you are not defined by what the experiences you're going through. You're not defined by what people say to you. You have to determine who you are and become who you are. So I have gone through a lot of experiences, and one thing I'll advise is find out who you are. Find out who you are and become who you are. Don't be defined by the experiences you're going through. Those experiences made me. Sometimes I'll go around with people. I can't even talk because I had this beggar mentality. I couldn't talk. I couldn't relate. I had this self-esteem issues. I feel I can't talk. I'm not qualified to talk. Sometimes it was just a whole lot for me. Growing up was just a whole lot. Then I had this issue with men. I'm like, every man is just the same. I had my relationships with men. Even the ones I dated before I went into church and met God. My relationship with men was, you don't break my heart. Before you break my heart, I'll break yours and go. Because I had this mindset that men were terrible. So these are the things that happens to people because of the experiences we experience. And my advice is, don't let your experiences define you. Instead of that, there's you that is inside. Identify that you, become that you. Grow above your experiences, grow above your challenges, and become a better you. Sometimes the challenges we face is because that is the area where God is calling us to use to help people come out of the issues they are having. Because you can't tell somebody going through something that you've not gone through. You can't explain it to somebody. You can't help somebody. You can't even feel it the way the person will feel, because only the person that understands the dimension in which he or she has gone through those things. So I want to encourage everyone listening to me. I got my healing process. Yes, my dad never came back to say he was sorry. Before his death, he started asking for my kids, my mom. He was apologizing for everything he had done. So because of the training I got from the man that became like a father to me, I had to go back to him. I started connecting back to him. I started calling him. Sometimes I will call him, we'll stay on the call, no conversation, because there was no relationship, no conversation, nothing. Just, Daddy, how are you? I'm fine. How are you too? I'm fine. Hope you're good. I'm good. How is your health? Fine. That's how our conversation always ended. But it didn't stop me. I was still doing things for him. I was to send him some small money, just take care of himself. And that was before he died. So I remember a day where we had like a book review, and as we were reviewing that book, they were talking about fellowship and relationship. And I realized that somehow, somewhere, I never got to tell my dad I had forgiven him for all of the things he has done. So let me take a break here. Most times, when people do things to you, or most times when our parents do things to us, or people, they don't know better. That was what I realized. If he had known better, maybe he would have done differently. Anyone that has hurt you doesn't know better. They don't. If they know better, they won't hurt you the way they hurt you. Like, because the things I know now and the things I know years back, quite a lot. There are some things I'll say to myself now, if I had known them, I wouldn't have acted the way I acted years ago. So most times, because of the lack of knowledge from our parents, that's why they did the things they did. If they knew better, they would have acted. And some of them are also acting from a place of hurt, because they were also hurt. Maybe they were hurted by their parents, or maybe they had someone somewhere who had molested or done something to them. That's why they also transfer that same aggression to the person they are dealing with. So I just want to say this and learn to let go of whatever I hurt. That day I stood outside and I cried and I spoke to the air, because he was dead and gone. I couldn't go back to him. This issue I'm talking about affected my marriage. While in my early years in marriage, I was struggling. I struggled because for me, men were just, so how will a man that ruined my life, how will a man come and start telling me what to do and what not to do? I struggled. I had to learn, So if you don't get healings from these things, they affect your relationship. They affect how you deal with your spouse. They affect how you deal with your children, So I want to encourage everyone, no matter what has happened to you, you can rise above it. Today, I'm a mother. I've helped a lot of young people. I help people a lot. I've helped a lot of young people my story and told them how to come out of things. I've helped couples, because I know sometimes this thing comes from a place of hurt. That's why we're having a lot of issues, So I don't know if I've said anything today that has really impacted your life, but please learn to let go, learn to forgive. Forgive, because if you're holding someone down, you're holding yourself. I remember when my mom comes to school to look for me, I'll tell her, Mommy, don't come and look for me. Don't come, because she was carrying hurt, the hurt of my dad leaving her after those years. People used to say my dad and my mom were like milk and his cow. They were always together. So the hurt she experienced, the disappointment she experienced, she carried that baggage for years. You see her coming, she was looking old, she was looking haggard, she was looking so. And I'll tell her, Mommy, don't come to look for me in my school again. I don't like the way you're looking. And one day when I encountered Christ and I went to Dominion City and I met the people I met, I called her back and I said to her, Mommy, do you know that this thing every day you keep talking to us about our dad, how he's not good, how he's not. I said, you are making it difficult for us to even forgive our dad, and you're also putting us in more trouble, because our lives might not end up well. No matter what he has done, he's still our father. And I told her, you have to learn to let him go. You have to learn to forgive him whatever he has done to you. And that was the beginning of the process for my mom. My mom she still says it wherever she goes today, that those things I said to her that year, was what liberated her. If you see my mom now, she's 70 something. You see how you won't believe it. She's looking so young, she's looking so happy, and she's fulfilling her purpose, doing the things she has intended to do all the while. So if you don't learn to let people go, you can't even find out who you are. You can't even do the things you're called to do. You can't even identify your purpose. So that's my encouragement, and this is my story.
Amidst the diversity and complexity, one thread remains constant: the unwavering spirit of the Nigerian people. Through adversity and triumph, they continue to write their own stories of courage and hope.